Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob?
I mean, some of you might be like,
continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth.
And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do.
So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. I am here with my special guest today, Carolyn Weiss.
Hi.
And we met through actually a previous podcast guest.
Yeah.
So Keith Batenhorst.
I get that right? I always mess up his last name.
But he was on, probably a couple months ago talking about the Mental Mountains Project. Awesome episode. I will link that. You got to check that one out. I think you caught that episode, right?
I did.
Kind of how we found each other.
Yeah. And then he actually was giving a talk at the Wanna Keep Brave event where I got to meet him. So that's actually what got me to listen to the podcast in the first place. And then after listening, I was like, all of this stuff kept popping up, like, you know, the divine intervention and the synchronicities. And so like these big moments of healing. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I need to reach out to Tami.
That's right. When you sent that message, like, whoa, this just happened.
Yes.
And like, okay.
Yeah,
So-
I definitely needed to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so here we are. So we reached out, we had coffee, and it was very much one of those, you feel like you've known each other your entire lives, and we could have probably talked all day and speak in the exact same language. And with what you do, I wanted to have her on as a guest because I want more people to know about what she does, because it is a whole other level of healing. And just to give people more tools and more resources and more support. And you take what resonates and you leave the rest. And you want to try different things and see what sticks for you, because I feel like everyone's healing journey is different. So
Very unique. Yeah.
yes. So share a little bit about what you do.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of dive into how you got into doing what you do.
Okay.
Because you also have a story.
Yeah. Well, I consider myself a healing and empowerment guide. And I do that because there is no one way to actually relate to everyone, because what I do is so personal for each individual client, right? So, but to kind of simplify it a little bit, what I was initially trained in was hypnotherapy. So it's a very specialized type of hypnotherapy. It's called rapid transformational therapy. And that's kind of where my I don't want to say where my holistic journey began, because that's not quite true, but the crossing of the physical, emotional, and spiritual barrier. Well,
Yeah.
that kind of all came into focus. Oh, the goods.
All the good.
And from there, you know, I kept having all of these really incredible experiences and meeting teachers. And then I was trained in Akashic Records reading and energy medicine. And then I continued my training actually through spirit. So it's been very interesting. So for those of you who don't know what an Akashic Records reader is, which most people don't, it's the Akashic Records is actually an energetic space. It's the energetic library of your soul. So it's all of the things that your soul has ever thought, felt, experienced in this timeline, other timelines, dimensions, that sort of thing. Because again, like a linear timeline is just a construct for the human mind to understand time. It's not actually how things are actually playing out in the universe. And so what I get to do as an Akashic Records reader is I get to go into your records and we get to ask questions about your soul. So pretty much anything that you could want to know about, well, you know, I've got to make this career choice. Which path would make me the happiest? I keep repeating the same things in love. Like, why do I keep picking the wrong people? It could be money blocks. It could, I mean, like literally anything you want to know about yourself, you can ask inside the records. That doesn't mean they're always going to tell you what the answer that you want.
Right.
Because it might interfere with what's supposed to happen. But inside the records, you also have access to your spirit team. So whether that is like your guides, that could be masters, teachers, it could be angels, it could be your ancestral lineage, it could be, you know, friends and loved ones who have passed away. And I should preface this, that when I say that, if you had met me not that long ago, I would have probably told you like, "Oh, really?"
Yeah. Sounds a little woo woo to me.
Yeah. I mean, I was not a person that like grew up with spirituality, that grew up with religion, faith, things like that. So for somebody to be like, "Oh yeah, you can go and you can talk to your angels and your spirit team." I was like, "Okay, sure you can." Turns out through experience that they are there, and your team is very, very happy to help support you. Right now we're going through a big awakening process. So a lot of people are going through a lot of emotional and spiritual stuff that's all coming to the surface to be healed.
Yes.
And now's the time to do that. And so they get really, really excited. Your team gets really excited to be able to support you and guide you and direct you, and for you to start noticing that they're there and how they're helping you and how the universe is working out for you, not to you.
Yeah. Well, and many times I have said on here, sometimes we just forget to ask.
Yeah.
When you're having those conversations with God or the universe, whatever you resonate with, is we forget to ask. And so we feel alone and
Yeah.
we're going through when really, yeah, maybe there isn't anyone in your physical world that you feel safe talking to, but sometimes when you're alone, that's the time to ask and
Yes.
realizing that you have this spirit team at your disposal. And however that resonates for you,
Yeah.
it's important to
Yeah. I actually had an experience recently. I'm what's called a line breaker. And so when you don't have a lot of people that are open spiritually, a lot of the stuff gets channeled through you. And since I'm already a channel, there's a lot that comes through me. And so I was moving some pretty heavy energetic stuff that had come up that, was from some ancestral ties. And it was really emotionally uncomfortable. And in my home that day, I did have my mother with me and my daughter in the other room. And like as I was moving through that, it's of course in the wee hours of the morning, like I was like, I got a little scared and nervous because like when the really tough stuff comes up, man, that's rough, but it's temporary. So I always remind myself of that. And I was like, and I thought to myself, oh, well, I could go wake her up and I would have that support there. But then I'm like, but that would be hard on her.
Yeah.
And then she'd bring her energy to the thing, to the situation. And it's like, okay, we didn't need that. So it was for the first time, because I didn't grow up in an environment that was natural for me to ask for help. I felt very alone a lot. And so for the first time, I thought to myself, well, what would happen if I did ask for support? And literally I could feel it come in, that it was like, and it was grounded. And it was like, I felt like I was being held almost as I went through the toughest stuff. And I've never felt that with another human. So it was a really interesting experience. Yeah, it was good stuff.
That's awesome. I shared a couple weeks ago about the episode I did with Erica. I think it was episode 30. And it was the craziest experience that morning. I was fine. I did my workout, and all of a sudden I was doing my little meditation, and then it got real dark real fast to the point where I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. And like sitting through that, and I felt like, oh, I needed that experience to know what it's like when someone's right there and when they can't see my kids who I want to live for, and this mission that it wasn't there. And I was like, whoa. And I'm like, this isn't mine. I knew that. And luckily Erica was there texting me that morning, and I was there enough to message her. I'm like, I'm not okay. But I recognize like, this isn't mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important sometimes for people to be aware that we're not just sitting with our own emotions. Like we're taking on, you go into the office and, you got negative Nancy, but it's more than that. Like you're talking about energy and moving stuff. And
it's like, it's the lifetimes that you've held before. It's also your ancestral line. So you've got all of that energy all coming in all together. It can be a lot. And then you just think about what you've acquired in this lifetime. I mean, your subconscious mind starts recording in the third trimester, and you're taking in all of the stuff. Right. So, for example, so when I get real freaked out, when I flush cold, I do not like to be cold because cold makes me feel unsafe. But that happens because when I was inside of my mother flushes hot when she gets upset. And so it was like to be able to counter that. So like my mom grew up in, like coming back from World War II, right? People were not in the best mental state. So grew up in a very unhealthy household. And so her body is wired and fired to keep herself safe. So if somebody raises their voice, like my father would raise his voice, that would send her nervous system into fight or flight, which then as a tiny little infant still inside her body, she's scared by the voice. And so her system is flushing. I'm feeling all of that. And I'm also learning about when he talks like that, that must mean it's unsafe. So I'm learning about the world that I'm going to be coming into. And it's so fascinating. Like, we are such complex beings. We're not given the tools. We can acquire the tools, but we don't start out that way, right? And we have lots and lots of stuff that we tend to bring over from previous experiences that shape how we show up.
Oh, I love this, because 2 episodes ago, I was sharing how I had asked, why do I have this fear of disappointing people? Why do I worry about being a burden? And I got the message loud and clear, is that when you were in your mother's womb and you were the 4th baby in 5 years and life is stressful, how are we going to do this? Like, that feeling. I don't know what else was going on in their life. I have yet to have that conversation, but it resonated so deeply that I felt like a burden before I even was born. And like, oh shit. Like,
Yeah.
but then I'm like, okay, what came through to me and what was very clearing and healing in that was, I'm only a burden for those who aren't ready for me. You know, I meet people like you feel like a gift to me. And it was like, oh, this connection feels like a gift. And sometimes these messages or whatever, like, it feels like a gift for those who are ready for you. I'm like, ooh, I need to let this go and stop worrying about the people who aren't ready.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because we hold the energy from the time that we learned it, right? So you are still in the womb. Like, you're holding energy from the learning standpoint of, I'm not even born yet. So that energy still lives within you. So it doesn't have to be rational. And it's also cool because we also don't have to hold on to it.
Right.
That, like, for a lot of people, just simply having an awareness of it allows it to let go. But then in being able to do some work, I think one of the best lessons I have ever learned was, like, where our attention goes, energy flows and healing begins. And so just simply holding space to feel that yuck and to just honor it, that allows it to move through and change shape and let go. And then I never have to be in that place again.
Yes. Well, and I love that you said that, because I think why so many people are resistant to looking at their story and dealing with it. I love how people say, like, I've dealt with it. Like, no, you haven't. Whatever you call dealing with it was bearing it and expressing it. But to really look at it is because there's this fear that you're going to stay stuck in that, in that feeling. If I go back to that memory, or I go back to that stage in my life, it's scary, it's dark, it was hard.
It's going to reactivate.
Yeah. And like, no, you're meant to, like you said, maybe you have to sit in it for a moment, but your inner child, the way I process things, they don't want to stay in that. They want you to get out of it.
Yes.
Take me with you, get me out of this. But if you keep ignoring it, you're keeping me locked in the basement. I would prefer you actually came down, looked at this, and we moved through it.
Yes. And to contextualize that too, is that, like, energy has to be somewhere. Like, you are an energetic being. So when energy is, like, trapped inside of us, it's trapped on our cells, in our tissues, and that lowers the vibration. It creates stagnancy in the physical body. And so that creates disease because blood flow doesn't want to move through there. We have increased level of toxin buildup, the lymphatic flow, like, all of it is affected. So what's just really cool, what I love about doing energy work and emotional healing, is that when you let that go, whatever's trapped inside you, when you let that go, it releases the stagnancy of the body, and it actually creates a detox reaction. And so like, very frequently, clients, when I work with them, they have, like, a Herxheimer reaction, that healing where you're actually moving poisons throughout your body that have been stuck and stored there. And so they usually can feel like crap afterwards as the stuff releases and gets processed out of their body. It's amazing because, well, I was trained as a nurse first. And so there was such a focus on the physical body and healing the physical body, and what can I do?
Dietitian over here. Yep.
If I eat right, if I exercise, that should be enough. And
we both found out that it's not the case. So for those of you listening, it's so much more than that. It's all the things.
Yeah. Well, I love all the things too, because it was like, well, when I started transitioning, when I started, like, getting started, okay, I hear ya. It's got to be mind, body, and spirit. But what am I going to do? Like, there's so many different things out there. How do I know what works and what doesn't work?
Yeah.
Well, it all works. What resonates, what feels good for you, but it all works. Some more than others, but it all works.
Yeah. Ooh, I just got goosebumps again. And I love that you're mentioning this, because I've said this many times on the podcast, and I just talked about it last week because of the healing I had done with my body. And when I was struggling so much before I went on this elimination diet and all these things, thinking it was my diet, right? Now I'm like, oh my gosh, of course it was my sacral chakra and my all this. But holding on, I never felt emotionally, energetically safe. So I struggled with constipation. I struggled with losing weight, like all of these things. It all manifested physically, and trying to help people see that when we process those emotions, like your health improves. And when I look at even just progress pictures, or I had Google Photos brought up from 2017 and made a little collage. It was me of 2017 and now. I was like, holy shit. Oh, like, and I'm not doing anything different than I was in 2017 besides this energy work. I was doing the same exact 2 shakes, intermittent fasting, my balanced meals. The only thing that changed, and working out, all that stuff was exactly the same. The only thing that changed is the healing that I have done. And I looked like a completely different person. Like the color of my eyes and the energy was like, holy shit. I sent it to a friend and we're like, she's like, what just happened? I'm like, I know. Like, you don't even recognize it, but yeah, you're right. I feel like a completely different person. I look like a completely different person. And there was no actual change on the physical. I was working out the same. I was eating the same. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. It's interesting. Like, so I grew up having like a lot of GI symptoms that like I was constantly on my own healing journey because I'm like, I cannot be 20 years old and feeling this bad. Like, what's it going to be like when I turn 60? Right. So I kept pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to find the thing. I was gluten-free for 13 years because I was told I was a celiac. And it turns out that it was just the straw that broke the camel's back,
Right.
all the toxins that we have in our food system.
Yep.
But what it really was is that trauma lives in in your gut. That's the root of your safety, your security. It lives there. So as I started moving through some of my own healing patterns, lifting stuff out of me, it also lifted out of there. And so now I don't have to have the crazy diet. I always eat healthy because I know what I'm putting in my body matters. So I have some freedom in that. And also with the work that I do, I have seen over and over and over again that the body doesn't do things for no reason. The body is very intentional. So whether it's the organs of the body, whether it is the subconscious part of the body, we have reasons for everything. So if you're trying to lose weight, for example, already we're phrasing as loss is bad, but you might be holding on to it because your body has a reason. Maybe you needed to be protected. Maybe you don't want to be seen or haven't wanted to in the past. There's a lot of reasons and it's so interesting because I've been doing a lot of work with people post-surgery and they're like, you know what? I had my ovaries and my uterus removed and I still have issues. The organs aren't there. Why is there issues? And it was because, well, it's all about energy. You may have removed the organs, but the energy of those organs still exist. And the trauma that was held in those organs still lives there. So we actually go in and do work at removing what the organ is. So the uterus, this is a big place where it has to represent the family. And so if you grew up in a really unhealthy family situation where you didn't have what you needed, where there was a lot of turmoil, you were walking on eggshells, things like that, that might be housed there. And so in like dealing with all of that and letting that process through, that allows the organ healing. It all has to do with the energy process. And then on top of that, we often see ourselves as, we're almost like we're a machine, right? So it's totally fine. Just cut into us, take out what we don't need, yada, 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 right? Except that the body doesn't feel like that.
Right.
And so when you cut into the body like that, there's trauma there. And so helping the body to recognize, like, people can actually dialogue. You can actually like tune into that part of your body and dialogue with it and understand what is coming from there and help it to understand. And I tell you, the inflammation, the pain, everything starts to shift. It's really incredible to see how that all plays out. It was far beyond my understanding when I was a nurse.
Right? And man, if our medical system just had a little bit of this knowledge, wow. I was just telling someone the other day a story of when I gave birth to my daughter and how I was obsessed with having a natural childbirth, like obsessed. And of course, because I was trying to control every aspect of that, it went the complete opposite. How I wanted. What?
You too?
Shocking. I have a whole episode on that. I can link it here. Control versus surrender.
Let's talk about that. I had the same thing.
Oh my gosh. Well, and then with Arlo, I was like, whatever's going to happen, it happened. And sure enough, had beautiful natural birth, pulled him right out. And it was just like, oh, interesting. But with my daughter and having that experience, I had a friend, I don't remember what birthday it was of hers, but she came up to me and she said, "Happy birthday." And it like took me back. I was like, "What? What did you say?" And she's like, "Happy birthday." And I was so freaking emotional that day and I couldn't figure out why. And I was like, "Oh," and this is long before I knew about energy work and trauma and all this stuff. I'm like, I had to release. I think I had, who knows how far this goes back, but even just in that experience, in this lifetime, I hadn't forgiven my body for feeling like a failure and that I failed that natural childbirth that I wanted with her and that my body failed me when it was the complete opposite, right? My body's like, you didn't trust me. You tried to control me. I knew what I was doing and you were working against me. But it was just even that energy moving through when she acknowledged that, how that was able to help me release even just from that experience. I was like, whoa. And that was the first time I was like, what is this? What is this feeling? And now that you've gotten more into this work, you're like, oh, that's exactly what that was.
Yeah. Well, we're not even put in a situation where like we're allowing our bodies to communicate with us and to listen to them. We're saying we're walking into a hospital and we're like, okay, give us drugs, and doc, you tell me when it's time to push. And it's like we're leaning on other people to be our healers, to be our directors, instead of following what is natural and innate for us and like our own intuition. After I gave birth to my daughter, something was just not right.
Yeah.
And I remember being in bed afterwards. And I mean, I was huge. I mean, each of my thighs was probably like this. I still look like I was 8 months pregnant. And I'm holding her and I'm just as happy as could be. And then I hear a voice that says, "You're about to die."
Ooh.
Yeah, it was scary. And, it was one thing when, I was single or married, right? But I just became a mother hours before.
Yeah.
And now there's a different reason to live. So I asked my husband at the time, I'm like, I need you to take the baby. I'm going to call the nurse in. And the nurse,
You're still in the hospital when this happened?
oh yeah, I'm like,
Oh.
this is like hours postpartum. And I called the nurse in and the nurse was like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, something's wrong. Something's wrong. I know it. And I need you to save me. Again, putting that onto somebody else.
Mhm.
She's like, she just ignored me and was like, "No, you're fine." And she knows I'm a nurse too, right? And she's like, "No, you're fine. No, you're fine." I'm like, "No, I'm not fine. I'm not fine. I need your help." And she wouldn't listen to me. So I like tuned her out and I'm like palpating my body and I'm doing my procedures to make sure that like my assessments so that I'm looking for bleeding, I'm looking for anything. Well, then luckily I was a hospice nurse at the time. And so all of the heavy drugs that they had given me, I was like, oh, that's why. It is a reaction to the medication. And I'm like, so I told her what I needed. And she's like, "You are fine." Well, I didn't respond very well. And I scared her. I scared her pretty significantly. And and then there's the poor man I'm married to holding my daughter, like looking at me like I'm the exorcist. And
I'm not.
it was rough. But I literally had to save my own life.
Right. I had to go to that extreme to get your freaking attention.
Yes. And it turned out that I was right. I had to get through that. But living in that situation, it was really eye-opening. Like you're supposed to be in the safest place possible,
Mhm.
right? Everything that I could possibly need medically is at my disposal. And I'm a nurse. And I can't get anyone to listen to me or to help save my own life. But spirit was.
Yeah.
If I hadn't
That
listened,
intuition, like, no, I know.
yep. If I hadn't listened, I would have hemorrhaged.
Wow.
Yeah, based on what was going on. So that was the trajectory. So very lucky to be here today. But, again, there's the other people in the room. My daughter felt all of it. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
the consequence of that is that I didn't bond with her as strongly right away because my body associated my daughter with threatening my life. So it took a couple of years to be like, oh, that's why that was probably my most emotional session of all, is realizing that my sweet little baby, my body thought was a threat on my life. That sucked. But
thank goodness you found out when you
Yeah.
did instead of 30 years later.
yes. And so that's also what I love about this work, is that
Yeah.
because she's genetically linked to me and we share an energy space, all the healing I do for myself also helps my daughter. And so our relationship is night and day different in the last couple of years. And it's the most rewarding work, especially when you get to see it translate to your kids.
Oh, absolutely. And that's part of, I mean, I know we both also connected over our relationship past and history and going through that healing journey in itself. But part of that too was seeing where I was and how that was impacting my kids, especially my daughter at that time, and how she was becoming a shell of who she was and how she was people pleasing, and realizing that I have to do this work, not just for me, but for her as well. And it started with food and my body image. I'm like, I don't want her to have the same issues that I did. It started there. But then all of a sudden I saw this is so much deeper, and I am not passing down my wounds and my trauma to her, to my kids. And we still got work to do. And I felt like, even just this last week, she's apparently feeling the energy too, because we've been like at each other. But I can see the change in Arlo in that the more I've laid this foundation with him, the easier this stuff is. And the more he's just aware and communicate how he can feel and all of these things. Like, okay. But that's why when we do our own healing work, it will naturally flow out to the people around you. And that's such a beautiful thing, and a reason that we have to make our healing a priority.
Yeah. I find so interesting in this too, is that the catalyst for us is usually someone else or something that we want, and it's not us ourselves. And
that would be selfish if we did it for ourselves. I mean,
I was working with a somatic therapist, and when I was 14, I was involved in a break-in, and I was all by myself, and I didn't have enough self-worth at that point in my life. I hadn't been taught that I was worth saving. So I didn't think that I could call 911. And so my body just froze. I was on the stairs and I froze. Everything ended up being okay in the end, but I was like, okay, this still lives inside me. I need help with this. And she's like, okay, absolutely. And she's like, but what I want you to process out is you to explain to me what happened throughout the events that unfolded. Okay. Now what I want you to do is I want you to put your daughter in that position.
Ooh.
How would that have played out differently?
Ooh.
And I told her, and she goes, exactly. And that's exactly what should have happened for you that day.
Right. Now you can go back to your inner child. Like, this is what should have happened, not just for my daughter, but this should have happened for you too.
Exactly. And so she actually took me through the experience of being able to rewrite my story. And I was like, this is my first session, and I just did 10 years of therapy in 1 hour.
I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that. People, and it's always like 10 years, like, do you know how? Because you're right. You're actually getting to you're not dancing around what this is. You get right to it, and like, whoa, just that recognition and the release.
Yep.
Whew.
Yeah. We're feeling into the intense energy of what happened there that day, and then letting it go, and then rewriting it for your nervous system.
Yeah. I love this. And it reminds me, this is such an important message for people, is because I did an episode with my dad very early on, and it was releasing trauma 55 years ago.
Wow.
When him and his twin brother, there was a tractor accident, and his foot came off the clutch of the tractor, and he ran over his twin brother. He's alive. He's okay. But what a clear example of physical trauma that my uncle experienced, which obviously there was emotional trauma there too, but the physical trauma. And my dad was physically okay, but no one ever helped him deal with the emotional trauma of that. And he never felt like he was supported in that.
Yeah.
And never thought, well, why would I need help when he's the one over here? He carried that for 55 years. And he said after that episode, that's never come up again. There hasn't been that same like waves of sadness and these feelings anymore, because he finally acknowledged that 11-year-old boy standing out in the field by himself when they take his brother to the hospital, and he doesn't know if he just killed his brother or not.
Yeah, I can feel it in my throat.
Yeah. And I was like, you need to go to that little boy in that field and let him know, hey, this was an accident and you need help and support in that too. And he never received that. Like, oh. So we think about it isn't just the event itself, it's the emotional trauma around it.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people have had things happen in their lives and they've never dealt with the emotional trauma of it.
Yeah.
Getting emotional support around it.
Yeah, like the big T trauma, little T trauma. It's like, it's all trauma, and like post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So many times it's not the actual event. Yep. It's what we learn, what we feel, what we experience in that event. That's what it's about.
Right.
This work just needs to be more out there.
I know. Hopefully this episode, maybe this will be the one that goes viral. Like, God, let's get this one out there. Because you're right. It's important work. And so you helped me we we did a couple sessions before this so I could experience her masterfulness. That's that word. Your gifts.
Thank you.
We'll say it that way.
I'm like thinking Masters of the Universe. He-Man.
She-Ra. I had a She-Ra doll. That was
Me too.
Of course you did. I think I still have it. It was always in my sock drawer. Even in college, I had my little She-Ra doll. I don't know. It's just went with me everywhere. That's funny.
For you.
I need to get her back out. But what was really fascinating, because there have been blocks, and a lot of people know on the podcast things that I have talked about where it's like, man, where this people pleasing won't leave, or why is there this fear to be seen, and the money blocks that I have. And it's not a knowledge problem. I can do all the money mindset things. I can do all of this healing, but there was something like, this feels so much deeper than just what I've experienced in this lifetime. So much of this doesn't feel like mine. And why is this so heavy? And why can I be this educated person who has done all this healing work and still feel blocked? And here you are. Welcome.
So do you remember going back into, because we covered a couple of things in that first session, and your history was really, really fascinating. So do you remember the money conversation?
I do.
Okay, so start telling that story.
Yeah. Because that has been a huge block to feel like worthy of receiving. And I'm like, oh, this is all around my worthiness wound. And I know that I'm worthy, damn it. Like, I've done this work, but there's still apparently a block, because anytime that conversation comes up, I mean, I can go into, meetings with potential sponsors and things like that and have a great first meeting. But when it comes to having to send them, click, then I'm like, and I block myself every freaking time. But anytime the conversation comes around money, that's whoop, I shut down. I'm like, where is this coming from? And so I knew this has to be a deeper issue. And so I don't remember what time frame this was, but there was apparently a past life where I had money, and whether it was people that were telling me what to do with it or trying to manipulate me with it.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was a burden to have money. So I wished it away.
Yes, you were female. You were female. This was, I think, more towards like I don't remember if it was like 1700s or 1800s. But you had a dowry. You had a really, really significant dowry. And again, women didn't have a whole lot of rights or decisions or anything else like that. And so you were being married off to a man that you didn't want to be married to. And it all had to do with money and finance. But you thought to yourself, well, if I didn't have this kind of wealth, I'd have more choices. And so you wished it away so that you could have your freedom. I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I understand that. And now it's actually limiting my freedom. It's actually limiting. Now it feels like a burden to not.
Yes.
And so being able to like release that energy from that, or be like, I understand why you wished that away, thinking that it was helpful. I mean, that's what ego does all the time, right? Like, I thought I was helping. I thought this was the best thing. I thought emotional binge eating was helpful, so you didn't have to feel these hard feelings. I thought I was doing you a favor.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So like similar to like the inner child work, then you can actually go in and dialogue with your earlier self. And then also, you should all know your words have a frequency, a resonance, and a meaning. Words should not be messed with. And so you can actually use words to undo what has already been done. And so we got to do an exercise with you where you got to speak to the universe in order to reverse what had been done, and also to help your own healing of your previous self in order to open up and to allow that to come in for you. And it did.
And it did. The next day, I had a new coaching client book and received a speaking opportunity that was paid. Next day. I was like, oh, like, okay, we got through to her. Like, I was like, let's keep this going. Yeah. And literally the next day.
Yeah. That was a fun text message.
Yeah. Just saying, we're not making that up. That was real. And so how can I stay in that energy? And that was part of this. I can have these big goals and these big dreams, but if I don't feel safe in that frequency, if I don't feel safe in that energy because of past fears that I don't even freaking know about.
Yeah.
I mean, I always attributed it to my childhood. Like, we didn't have much. And so I didn't want to ask for things. And there was also stories around people that had money growing up that they were selfish pricks or whatever. And so it's like, well, I don't want to be seen like that. So I better not have money. It didn't feel safe. But wow, that fear is so much deeper. And it felt like that. I knew that intuitively, like, this is more than that. And sure enough,
Absolutely true. And it's funny, I work with a lot of people who are intuitives, who are healers, who are going through an awakening. And so it's not uncommon to see this. And so one of the things that those of us who do resonate in this field, there is an aspect of this of wanting to be seen, but not wanting to be seen because we don't feel safe. Because when you carry gifts,
You might get killed.
yeah, I've been to so many witch burnings now and drownings. The drownings have started now too. But it was another one of your lifetimes was like you had stepped out. Well, when we first went to it, I think this was 1203. 1203, I want to say. And so it was more of like one of those like Roman-esque settings with the buildings and the dirt and the sandals and, and so
I love that movie for a reason.
And so you're on the scene and there was somebody that was speaking out and you watched what happened to them get pulled away. You knew that this was a threat. And so you went home to, this is actually, you were male in this lifetime. And yes, we do flip flop between male and female roles, but generally we tend to show up as one sex or the other more often. But so in this lifetime, you were male and you went home to your wife and you started having that conversation about, this is the risk, but this is what I feel I'm called to do. And ultimately you made the call to speak out and to help your fellow man. And that led to you being arrested. And while you were spending time in prison, you were helping the other people in prison and helping them to understand and giving them support. But then ultimately it led to you being beheaded. And your wife and your son in that lifetime were there to watch you and give you support as that happened. But then it was also interesting because it turns out that the people that were your wife and son in that previous lifetime actually followed you in this lifetime. So I don't think we got into who they are, but they're here in this lifetime with you, which is so fascinating to see who we travel with.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you're watching on YouTube, you see that just brought up a whole different set of emotions because it made me think about my current life and feeling this calling. And I remember telling my then husband, I don't feel like I'm in control of this. Whatever is happening in my life, this calling, this mission, this awakening, I'm not in control of it.
No.
If I could go back to hitting the easy button and living the life that I did before, that'd be way fucking easier. Trust me, than going through this and making these changes and having to heal these wounds. Being able to stay in this little 3D life would have felt easier.
Yeah.
But I can't go back. It was like crossing this threshold. Like there was no going back, no going back to your 9 to 5, no going back. I like physically cannot feel that in my soul that I was able to do that. And once that happened within our marriage, that was it.
Yep.
And it felt like I had to go on this mission and I was going to have to sacrifice things in my life.
Yeah.
In a way, family as I knew it.
Yeah, as you move through and you up level, a lot of times you have to leave all of that behind, which is similar to what my course has been as well. When my awakening happened, I had just gone through a divorce and I'd been feeling the call, but things needed to move out of the way. And when it came in hard. And there was a probably about a week or two where I was really struggling during the daytime hours and people were really concerned about me. I cried a lot, I just felt so much intense emotion. And then after that, I actually was working with another therapist and she was helping me to move through some of it. And thank goodness, because she gave me some tools to help me understand what was going on. Because I felt like I was going crazy and I was scared. I didn't know anybody else who had gone through something like that. And we're not taught that. I didn't feel like I was safe in my own body. It felt like my body was betraying me. And then for probably about 3 months, I would, manage to get my kiddo wrapped up in bed at night. And then I would go rock myself in my closet and cry. And it would come in waves.
Yeah.
It's those waves. And after that stuff just needed to move through. Again, I'm a line breaker, right? So it channels through me. It's not my stuff. And I also like to point out that we oftentimes feel broken. As people, we feel broken. And what I like to point out is that it's not us. It's things that we've been taught by other people. It's stuff that we're carrying and that there's nothing wrong with us, but it's our responsibility to show up and to move it through and to deal with our stuff. Even triggers. I'm so squirrel right now. Triggers, for example, this is one of my really, really big things that I love to talk about because relationships are so, so important. If you are experiencing a trigger in a relationship, that is yours to deal with, not your partner's. They are simply the catalyst.
That was the last 2 episodes. This is your fault. Oh no, Tami, this is absolutely your shit.
It feels so yucky, but it's like,
Yeah.
but it makes you a better partner. It makes you a better human.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's a lot of stuff. But yeah, so how did it feel to be you? Like from like, so I'm sitting here. So when I'm doing an Akashic Records reading, like I enter the records, I've got my eyes closed and I'm just pouring out what she needs from, I function as the conduit. I'm like the go-between. It's kind of like playing telephone with spirit, basically.
Yeah.
So, from sitting on the other end of the computer, because we were doing this virtually, what is that like to sit in your seat and experience that?
One, I think it's important to kind of check your ego and be like, hey, you can stay out here. I need to just really be present in this moment and allow whatever comes through, come through, whatever resonate. And I don't need you in my head telling me that like, oh, this is whatever, because it'll creep in real fast and ruin sessions like that. I mean, I see that in sessions that I have with people all the time. I know when their ego comes in. I'm a freaking ego detector. And I know it with myself now too. It's a little bit more interesting when it's yourself, but I can call it out and people are like, oh, that's your ego. That's your projection. So I think first was, okay, let whatever she says, let it sit with you, and whatever is coming through, I feel things. And so when that emotion comes up and people have seen it on the podcast, like I'll all of a sudden talk about something and all of a sudden the emotion just hits like out of nowhere. And I know like, okay, there's probably something deeper there. And so in a lot of those things, when you started talking, like I felt that on a very, very deep level, like, okay, there is no doubt that is true for me. Because if there were things where it's like, yeah, that doesn't resonate, but that I don't think that happened at all in your sessions. So, because there were some, I'm definitely like more like getting my head chopped off and that whole money thing, like those ones very deeply resonated where I was like, oh shit, like I felt that to the core of my being. And so would be sitting there crying with you and just allowing myself to clear that through tears. But then after, oh man, I think that, I don't know if it was the first one or the second one, but I feel like I got hit by a freaking truck. I was out. I was just laying in bed. I'm like, I can't function. I just felt like I was hungover and I haven't drank in, almost 3 years.
Your detox reaction.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's important for people to recognize. We were talking before we hit record on just even a daily basis when you're releasing emotion, how sometimes you can feel drained. When you've had a hard cry, you're just kind of like, oh, like you kind of feel hungover.
Yeah.
And you were clearing and moving energy. And so you need to honor your body and allow it to rest. Or for me, oftentimes it's getting outside, that fresh air, that grounding.
Hydrate.
Yes. Water. And there were times too where, and this is where I have to be mindful in terms of like grounding foods. And sometimes I might just need something salty. And so I'm aware after there are things like that where I'm like, okay, am I craving? Is this an ego thing? Am I trying? Like, no, I actually feel like I need help grounding. And so like whatever things I can do to do that, and like I need to support my physical body because of the energetic work it just did.
I love that.
Yeah. And I actually, when I did my first energy healing certification out in Colorado, it was so funny because they did their whole activation and healing thing. And then they gave us a whole day afterwards for integration. And when I was out there, I'm like, what the hell? There's a waste of a day. What are we supposed to do? And I was like, oh, because people know me. I get up and work out every morning. And even when I was in Colorado, I brought my bands and I'm outside in the middle of nowhere with my exercise bands. And that morning I was just like, that next morning, I felt like I don't really feel like doing this. So I ended up doing like some gentle yoga. And then we went down for breakfast. And I think it's now like 8:30. I'm like, I'm going to go back to bed. Like, who are you, Tami? And I slept for like 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, this is what they call integration. And we often don't do that. We get back to work, you're being lazy or like, no, you need time. When energy shifts like that, you need time to really integrate this new, maybe lighter feeling or whatever it is. But we don't often give ourselves that because of our grind and hustle society where we have been told that you are not worthy unless you're achieving and doing. And then we forget to be in that moment where we literally just need to be.
Yeah. It's like you don't really want that to like reabsorb. It's kind of like, when you exercise and you sweat, right? You're getting out those toxins. But if you don't wash it off,
Right.
you're going to
just sitting in
reabsorb.
it.
Yeah.
That's a great way to think about that because ew. And I know coming out of the sauna,
I know.
just all day, like ew. Truly.
Yeah. Epsom salt baths are so important. Get your head under the water and dunk and like cleanse that stuff off of you. Epsom salt is great for clearing energy.
Yeah. I need to do that more often.
Yeah. Well, even burning Epsom salt in your space. Yeah.
What?
It's like taking Epsom salt and then putting a little bit of alcohol and lighting it. Let people more familiar with sage.
I do have sage.
Yeah. The energy of it is just totally different and like really like clearing. Yeah. That's my go-to.
I'm doing that later today.
I know.
Don't tell my apartment complex.
I know. No.
On the DL. Oh, yeah. It's super important. And I think, okay, I'm going to go here because I know, and going back to getting my head chopped off about speaking up, is it was really interesting. A couple years ago, I was invited back to church. And I was like, I haven't been to church for, like, I've always been very spiritual. I've always believed in God, but I hadn't been back to church. I grew up Catholic, like not super strict, but I just never really resonated with some of the messages there. I was like, okay. And so I just found God outside. I found God on my paddleboard and I connected that way. And I felt like I was always communicating through these signs and synchronicities and my angel numbers and all this stuff. Well, then I was meeting people that I would identify as religious who all of a sudden I felt like those were bad things, like my angel numbers and things like that. And I was like, oh, is that like, and so I remember getting invited to this church and I was like, okay, this opportunity is coming up for a reason. So I went and I loved it. Like the music and everything. I was emotional. Holy crap.
Wow.
I would find all of these messages in it. But what was very interesting is I wore my quartz crystal necklace and I had my 1111 bracelet on. And I had this feeling come over me where I was like I was going to get found out and killed. It was this intense feeling, like, I can't let them know that I'm spiritual. That's how it felt. It was like, and then all of a sudden I had to like put on this mask. Well, then eventually like I kept going and I loved it. And then I started to feel like, oh my gosh, am I putting on this mask now that I'm this religious person instead of who I actually am? And all of a sudden I felt like, yeah. And I had to I pushed it away.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I didn't want to be put in a box about how people thought I believed if it was actually taking me out of alignment with how I really felt. And it's been this whole.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so I'm bringing this up because through that experience, I came across people that didn't believe in energy work and, thought a lot of what this is, like the work of the devil or whatever. And so, and I know I have people watching this that would maybe resonate more with the religious aspect. And so how do you speak to that? And maybe that's a loaded question, but.
Well, no, because it's everything is energy and it all ties in. And so whether or not you're praying to God or Allah, it's all higher energy beings essentially. And, like I said, growing up, I wasn't religious. I grew up around religious people, but I wasn't. And so angels for me were like, no way. But I've come to learn that they really do exist. And it's actually really beautiful because I can hear them when they come in. It's the most incredible sound. And so I think it's like just more about, we can't explain everything. If we could explain it, then we aren't getting it right. This is way beyond us. And so I try to ask people just to be open to it because all of this stuff is real. All of this stuff does work. You believe what resonates for you, what you have a history with, what you have experience with. And there's also aspects of it that have to do with control. If I understand it like this, then I'm safe. I know that this is what's going to happen to me next. And
this just made me think of something.
So I don't know. I think I think everyone's journey is just so deeply personal. But one of the biggest lessons that we're all here to learn is how to be able to let go, how to be a child of the universe and how to receive love and to have a human experience. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but
No, I think it does, because you're right. Like, it's being open, and really it's about finding it within yourself.
Mhm.
I think, yes, sometimes we need people like you to help you go within, but it's not like you're this guru or whatever. You're helping me actually get deeper within myself and understand me more. So I'm coming home to myself, coming home to my inner child. I'm coming home to God, to source, to the universe. But oftentimes we're so disconnected. And it's like, so if you can find people, resources, tools that will help you actually go within. But I think that's why when we were doing the diets and the fitness programs, like all of that was outside of ourselves. I mean, granted, they can help you go within. Like, I mean, that was a gateway for me with nutrition, was to start to feel better and realize I was worthy of feeling better. But if I just stayed there on the surface, like, I would have kept getting that test a million more times.
Yes.
Because I never learned the lesson that I was actually worthy and that I deserved unconditional love from myself.
Yep.
And that God has always had that for me. And so I think about these tools, like, what can help you get there? And maybe sometimes we need to look at, where am I being put in a box about what I should do, what I should believe, how this healing should look? Those are the things that we have to be able to sit with. And whether that's your religion or whether that's your upbringing or whether that's whatever, is this actually true for me? Does this resonate?
Yeah.
And can I look at that? Can I ask myself those questions? I mean, that was even for me, like, who are you, Tami? And then that's a hard question to ask when you don't know the answer. And when you start to ask, like, is this the life that I want? And your answers don't actually match your current reality. Those are scary things,
Yes.
because then you're faced with the decision. Okay, am I going to just choose to not do anything about it? Now I have to sit in that awareness that I'm ignoring, or I'm going to have to make changes that could completely change my life. And that's hard.
So when my parents got divorced as a child, my biological father, he really shifted. It was like he was going through a midlife crisis, right? Which we know is not what a midlife crisis actually is. It's about finding yourself. But he got really into shamanism. And so as a little kid, watching this transition, and partly this all has to do with him and his personality, which was what the turnoff was, not what he was actually into, but not having the tools to understand what was happening in my family. For me, spirituality was incredibly uncomfortable. It was not something I was open to, whether it was in shamanism or it was in the church. I was completely uncomfortable with it. I couldn't even say the word God until I was in my 30s. So I had to go on this journey of healing the body because I couldn't allow myself, because it was so uncomfortable, to access the other components. What's living in my mind? All right. That might be a little scary. And then spirituality. Oh no, I don't have any interest. I don't have any interest in going there. But, and everyone's journey is everyone's journey, right? But how amazing it could have been if I could have let myself lean into that feeling earlier on and open myself up to it. There's this one person that I know, he really big into the gym, right? I think he was a gym owner, and he had that identity, Mr. Buff, tough, gym guy, right? Well, his wife was more into spirituality, but he wasn't accessing that. Even though he could see that it was helping her, he wouldn't access it because, well, what are other people going to think about me? What is that going to feel like? That's going to threaten my own identity. But then he was like, well, wait a second. Aren't I proving the exact opposite, that I'm not so tough if I'm letting other people decide what I am?
Mirror.
Right? Oh, I love the mirrors.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I loved that lesson. So then he opened himself up, and now he actually does participate with her in that. And so then they've been able to go on this healing journey, growing together.
Interesting how that works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, coming back to what feels comfortable for certain people, I remember having a conversation when we were kind of made that announcement to certain people in our family about separation. And we had talked about my daughter, wanting, I offered, like, do you want to talk to someone else besides me? Because I absolutely feel equipped to help her with this stuff, but I'm also her mom. And I understand that. So, like, if you want to talk to someone else and have support, 100% will do that. And so got her in to see a therapist. And I remember having this conversation with someone, and it's like, oh yeah, got Ari into therapy. And this was the quote was it with like an actual therapist or one of your people? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Familiar with that.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was my ego or my highest self wanted to come out lashing and bring up a very powerful reminder of how the medical system failed someone in that family to the point where they took their life, when there were signs and all kinds of things that doctors should have known about. And actually, when someone says, yeah, I have contemplated suicide, and they did nothing about it. And so this is where it's like we have to be able to challenge these things again, going back to our pregnancies and labor and birth and going into those situations. Like, yes, you want to be able to trust your medical provider, but you also need to trust your intuition. You also need to listen to your body, because that is your guide. Think about all the things that are happening with emergency C-sections and things like that. When you've had a completely normal pregnancy this entire time, like there's yeah. And I just, like, if we can, I mean, we can get in a whole conspiracy theory. That's not what this is about, but it's coming back home to ourselves and realizing how much power we have within ourselves with our intuition, and being able to have someone guide you through that to understand you more. So you trust that more. Like, I knew there was some deeper stuff here going on. And now that I have this understanding, okay, I'm not sitting here beating myself up because, like, why can't you break through these barriers anymore? Now I understand it, and I can love and honor and respect that and be like, okay, now it's time for us to move forward. That isn't necessarily our story anymore. We can write a new story. And that's like, whoo, it just healing in a whole different way, a whole new level.
Yeah. And I love that in my work, I get to be a conduit for your healing, but I'm not healing you, you're healing you.
Yeah. Yes. Same. I feel that same way, whether I'm doing energy sessions with people, but for me, it's more of just the conversations. Like, I call them clearing conversations, because I know when I'm thinking about their energy centers, like, I'm helping you feel safe in a safe space. I'm helping you feel your emotions. I'm helping you feel empowered to be able to share this story. I'm helping you find love for your, like, it's all like, and it's just the conversation itself. But oftentimes just reflecting back the things that you're saying, the things that you're doing, so you can actually see it for yourself.
Oh, that's so important.
Yeah.
I love it when like, I've heard it a million times, but then finally it just hits in just the right way. That's like,
yeah, they have the aha, they make the connection. And when you see that happen, it's like, like, you just kind of help connect the dots. But what you really want is for that person to really feel it. And when you see that, you're like, oh, okay, they're good now.
Yeah. And it's like everyone's going to be different, right? So we all have our own individual gifts in the way that we communicate, in the way that we receive or don't receive, right? Whether we allow ourselves to receive or not. So the different ways that people are going to move through healing, like we've got, that conversation, that talking about it. We've got art. We've got dance and moving our physical body. I love talking to people about exercise, right? It's like, well, no wonder you don't want to exercise. It can feel bad to move your body because the issues are in your tissues.
Ooh.
You move your body.
Is that like a,
yeah, that's a thing.
I was like, is that a saying? Because if not, you should absolutely coin that. The issues are in your tissues.
Issues are in your tissues. You start moving, that stuff comes out. People are getting into walking meditations and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different ways that we're able to access this place of healing. And so the things that work for you aren't necessarily going to work for me. So this is so much about learning how to come home to yourself, exactly like you said, and find what works for you, because we're so used to living inside of a one size fits all medical system. And we all need personalized medicine. And it's personalized medicine that we can choose and direct for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. Awesome. Well, how can people find you, work with you, all that jazz?
So my company is called Love of My Life Energetics, and you can find me online at loveofmylifeenergetics.com. You can also email me at loveofmylifeenergetics@gmail.com.
Yay.
Yay. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff too, but
all those fun things.
Show notes, right?
Yes. And I will say, while those sessions can feel like, what am I about to get myself into? You just created such a safe space, comforting, warm. I was actually really excited to tap into that and to learn about those things, knowing like this is going to help me make more sense of why I do the things that I do. I do that just from the inner child perspective. You take that to past lifetimes. So it's just like, oh, so it's just a whole other level of it.
Yeah.
But man, just being able to validate some of that, it's so healing in itself. And so you do amazing work. And so I would highly recommend just trying out a session and see what comes up for you and see how you feel afterwards, because it was pretty powerful stuff.
And Spirit's not going to give you more than you can take. And you can't relive, like you can't re-experience anything. It's just whatever's coming to the surface. And oftentimes it just gives you maybe aspects that you weren't able to integrate, right? If we were talking about something that you experienced that was traumatic, for example, you're not able to take in all the information that was available to you at the time. So it just helps you to kind of fill in the gaps. So there's so many different ways that the session could go for you. And it's personalized medicine.
Absolutely.
Ooh, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Thank you. All right. Well, absolutely. Go find her, go check it out, and give yourself one of these little sessions and see what you find out about yourself. So awesome. Until next week, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your energy exchange as we're over here. And yeah, we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.